Introduction to Security Design with Windows 2000. So when we're designing security for our Windows 2000 network, first we need to know our technical and our security requirements. Once we have our information, we're going to apply our knowledge of the Windows 2000 operating system and designing a secure Windows 2000 network. Alright, let's start with our information gathering process. Analyzing business, technical, and security. These are some of the things that we need to look at. An underlying theme for all of these business requirements is the tail room is telling you this is what our business model is and this is what we want to do in the future. Not quite as important as what the CIO is telling you. As far as business model company, well, this matters because if we remember from our Active Directory structures, if we have different language requirements, different security. So we need to know what type of business model are they operating under. Do they have any subsidiaries? Are these subsidiaries forest? Or are these subsidiaries just in name alone, so they're different entities but they still fall underneath the parent, in which case, so that we could still maintain one Active Directory structure and still have the centralized administration, one enterprise administrator over everybody. Okay, we need to know, do we have any branch offices? If we're looking at branch offices, then we need to know, are there different view structure for the branch offices? But first we need to know what is the business model that they're operating under. Okay, centralized version. So do we create one domain with a bunch of OUs in it? We would probably do that for a centralized several child domains. Okay, so we can actually delegate the administration of that domain to a domain administrator in that other domain. I know who controls the money, where the money decisions are coming from, because any kind of security design is going to involve spending some money. And make sure that we keep our security design realistic for the expenditures that are actually going to happen. How often do they outsource? What kind of tasks do they outsource? This is going to dictate our creation of some different users to our internal corporate network. How do we provide them access and still maintain security? So we're going to talk about extranets in a future video. Policy or process or thinking on change management. How do they control? How do they modify the way? When we develop our security design, we're going to want to make sure that our change management, the way that the security design is going to change over time, is okay. And then finally, decision-making process. We want to know who's making the decisions for this security design, because we need to know at what the CIO, who may be is very technically inclined, or who maybe to a lower level manager that wants to approach our security design and really present it in a way that would fit the person that's making the requirements. This is going to be a little bit easier because we're dealing with just technical issues and most of us are technically inclined here. So we're going to look at from an earlier video in the MCSE series. When we're talking about connectivity and bandwidth, we're typically talking about the development or the design. How many sites should they have? We may or may not have a design already in place that has their site structure already set up. Now, security between the sites, we want to make sure that there's no security breaches as we do our network-to-network traffic. If it's not set up, that's probably our security design, and we can make sure that that site is deployed in the most secure manner possible. Okay, when we're talking about IT, we want to know, how does IT currently manage? Which groups of users do they treat as a collective entity, and of the IT department, and so therefore have been delegated certain tasks? Okay, we need to know the level of trust that has been earned. Administrators, or do they want them to be domain administrators? Okay, so what type of IT mindset are we looking at? Probably evolve over the course of the security design. So as you suggest different alternatives, as you try to incorporate them into the security, to have this. So we'll kind of have a flowing process with the IT management. And then we also want to look at special user requirements. Are there any users give them enhanced rights, less rights? Do we restrict them way down? So we need to know what are these special requirements so that we design. If there's one user that we really don't trust, we need to maybe have a special note in our security design of how this particular user will, I should say. The third type of information we're going to be looking for in our information gathering phase is going to be the different security requirements. Okay, you ask somebody, what's your risk tolerance? Oh, I don't have any tolerance for risk. Well, alright then, what we'll do is just unplug the network cable, and now you got to see how much money are you willing to spend on your security versus how important is a risk-free environment. So, okay, well, you're not very serious about it, so you must have a high tolerance for risk. So money's going to weigh into the decision, and just kind of gut like to protect if we can find a cheap way to do it. There's certain things we don't care about. So this is going to be very important information for us as we go through our security in place. Okay, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to try to implement security where they already have sufficient security. We want to design a $10,000 solution for something that we already consider to be acceptable. So we need to know what's already in place. What is coming in the future? Very important information. If we know about what's coming, we can plan the security for that future upgrade, that future involved with that planned upgrade and rollout. When we're talking about the IT management with regard to the security requirements, okay, so do we currently have the need to do IT administration from home? In which case, maybe we need to look how do we currently manage IT within the network? Do we have separate logons for when we do administration versus when we do regular administration? And how secure we want to make the IT management and administration. And here, this is going to involve some education of the IT by logging in as an administrator for 100% of your activities. Something like that. Okay, potential threats. This is a big one. Particular organization so that we can address them throughout our security design. Let's take a look at what some of the potential threats could be. Organizations need to be aware that the majority of hacking or attacking comes from inside the network. Okay, it's just regular old users curious, just seeing, hey, what can I do, where can I go? Okay, you got to always guard against the internal threat. Social engineering, this is interesting. An attack that comes in a non-traditional manner. It's not somebody sitting down at a laptop and typing away. It's somebody who picks up a telephone or that can get them into the network. Okay, so it could be something like, oh, I don't know, me calling up IT and saying, hi, this is John. Just kind of me hoping that there's a John Smith somewhere in the company. Okay, so there has to be some kind of process in place where we can see, is this really the user who's engineering attack of me calling a user and saying, hi, this is James Smith from IT. And okay, so users need to know a certain base level of education as far as security. Okay, IT or anybody. They should know that IT doesn't know their password but can change their password. They should know about physical security, down at your machine and make some changes. They should know that they either recognize the person from IT or there should be some way to identify them as a legitimate IT integrated into the security design so that we can keep those types of attacks from happening. Okay, organizational attacks. So maybe what we should protect, but also what we should monitor and track so that if there is an organizational attack, we can sue them or take. We've got accidental attacks. Any accidental attack or accidental threat that happens, I think is the fault of able to accidentally breach security. We should do the best we can to plug all the holes of these different things automated attacks. The automated attacks are, running every word in the dictionary to try to guess a password. Maybe send in an attack on your network. We should do the best we can to educate ourselves for what types of automated attacks can exist, maybe how they work so that we can protect ourselves against them. Okay, so we need to know what automated attacks are possible and incorporate them into the security design as well. Business, technical, and security requirements. Now, this analysis of our business, technical, and security requirements is also going to be a continuing process. As we develop our design, we're going to continue to gather information, match it against the business needs, the technical needs, designing the secure Windows 2000 network. Okay, now this is really where this video series picks up. Okay, we looked at now let's look at the actual design process. What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about? Well, we need to make sure that we are designing for security. Means that we have the appropriate logical infrastructure. So do we need one domain, separate administration of that domain? Do we have complete independence with another entity, in which case we would want to have a separate forest? We want to be careful that we develop our security group strategies so that we can do an efficient, secure management where possible. We want to make sure that we have group policy integrated throughout so that we're taking full advantage of the functionality of the Windows 2000 Active Directory. Secure administration also means, though, that we make sure that the administration that's happening is done in a secure manner. Encryption for network traffic for IT administration where appropriate. We have VPN access from outside the network. We have when we want to do administration. So all types of situations like that, we want to make sure we're designing for secure administration of the network. Risk analysis and the risk tolerance. Okay, what is your tolerance for risk on this network? Well, if our tolerance is so low that we want to eliminate a smart card, where we store a digital certificate on a smart card and use that to log into the network. Or maybe we'll go with just our standard, define the boundaries for how we want to authenticate our users, both our network users, local network users, our VPN users, to define what methods we're going to allow. This next one's a big one, securing our resources. This is the heart and soul we want to protect. So we want to make sure that no matter where our data is, on the hard drives, traveling across the wire, transported on where our data is, it's always protected. So we'll see how to secure our different printers and our network design. Security policies, what we're dealing with here is how we're going to secure both our computers and our practices. So we'll be using desktops, secure environments, but we'll also be looking at the security configuration and analysis tool, and we'll see how we can incorporate a good security, something that's nice and easy to change, that coincides with our security objectives, but is also workable. Also, limited data is kind of building on the security of resources. Up here we're looking at files and folders, and we're seeing how we can protect them, and we also want to protect them as they are transmitted across the network. So we're going to look at how to incorporate IPsec where applicable as it flows across the network. We also need to account for web traffic, so we'll be looking at any integrate. We'll be talking about incorporating SMB signing where appropriate to encrypt traffic to a Microsoft server, etc. So we're going to look at how we can encrypt data as it flows across the network. Now when we're talking about securing access to and from the internet, setup and configuration. Now we're going to be looking at how we can provide access to the internet via a proxy server, via network walls. If the organization that we're developing this security design for is already connected to the internet, we'll to try to make it as secure as possible. If they're not connected to the internet, we have the best opportunity to, from the start, make sure that they have to be securing access from the internet. Okay, so as users come to the corporate network, either with a VPN to access servers, we'll make sure that all of that traffic is protected. With secure interoperability, we're going to recognize the fact that we need to make sure that we incorporate into our design a secure manner of operating with other operating systems. Non-standard, not the norm. We're going to have to make sure that we have secure methods of accessing those resources and doing those services. And then finally, different network services that we're offering. Okay, we have umpteen network services available to give us all of this functionality, but we have to make sure holes where an attacker can access our network. Taken as a whole then, what we're seeing here is the major components. So if we concentrate on these main areas, we're going to have a good starting point for developing our design. In this gathering and the actual design process. Okay, we said that we need to be looking at the business, technician gathering, so that we can start our design process, and then we need to kind of have a life cycle where as we develop our design, the business, technical, and security requirements could be constantly changing. Okay, so it's going to be a living process where we're going to have design information at the main components of that secure Windows 2000 network design. And you'll probably notice that as we went to see in the rest of this series, we're going to see how to design for secure administration, authentication, securing our resources, etc.